I'm living a beautiful life. I'm making a beautiful life. I'm changing, rearranging. I see a beautiful day. It's coming my way. It's a beautiful day.
Who's ready for some talk? But not just some talk, some truth talk, right?
Yes.
So I'm so excited, and thank you all for joining us for our live show. And as we said earlier, this was actually 5 years since our first one, and so we're just so honored to be here and have you share in this historic moment. And so I had the esteemed pleasure of introducing and actually interviewing this beautiful vessel to my left, and her name is Miss Lisa Gilbert. So it's so interesting because Lisa wears many hats, and she's just truly a blessing to the kingdom. And I remember years ago meeting Lisa as she's actually a psalmist, but meeting her, I don't even know if you remember this, but meeting you years ago at a church that you sang at. Wow. And it's so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Okay.
So she's actually a recording psalmist. She is also the wife of Mr. Charles Gilbert. Give it up. She's just celebrating her 2-year anniversary. Amen. And then she also, I'm going to let her talk a little bit about her new venture with No Nonsense. And so tell us a little bit about what made you go from the JOB to now that entrepreneurial moment where you're now the owner of No Nonsense.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here, and I've been following Miss JQ, not knowing that she knew me, but following her for a minute. But I guess my transition, if you will, into entrepreneurial was really that kick by the Lord, if I could say that, after being laid off the second time in corporate America. So when you get laid off, it's like, so what do you do now to make money? But not just make money, but something that really will impart into other people's lives. And when you wake up and you do your passion every day, it's never like work. It's never ever like work. So that's been actually in July will be 20 years that I've been walking this road. And the name No Nonsense Training Solutions actually came about 3 years ago, maybe 4. But so I was doing it under my other name. But then God began to switch it, and He began to, and I'm going to use these kind of words because when you talk business, is what people understand. He began to brand the business. And I make sure to give Him glory for it because it is His business. I'm merely the manager of it. Does that make sense? Amen. So anything we do for Him, He gives it to us and He allows us to manage it, and He takes it where He wants it to go. Amen. And so 20 years later, here we are, and He's opening it up.
And so talk a little bit about the title. I thought that was just a very interesting title in reference to training and businesses. So,
Yeah.
No nonsense.
No nonsense. Well, it actually came, my audience is very interesting. My niche, the people that I train, is all law enforcement, corrections, public safety. So I have a very different audience, and they kept saying to me, it came about 2 ways. The first way came from one of the mothers in our church. And her name is Mom Ann. A lot of you know her here. And she says, "You're the no nonsense prophet." I'm like, okay. And I didn't pay attention to it. I really didn't. But then every time I'd go train somewhere in law enforcement, they would say, "Oh, Coach Lisa, you got that no nonsense thing going on, that no nonsense thing." And it just kept happening. And no nonsense doesn't mean mean, it doesn't mean rude, it doesn't mean disrespectful. It means through the fluff, cut through the fluff, get to the business, get to the matter of the business without all the frills. And that's what people tend to respect, and that's where we are today.
Amen. Okay, so I love that, Lisa. So this is a part of why Lisa was invited. And so today is not just about entrepreneurs. Today is about whatever God has us doing, that we would do it with a spirit of excellence, that we would do it with that level of no nonsense where people get a chance to see Him. And so before the show started, we actually had you all fill out these cards. And, you know, we're living in a culture today where everything is about boss, boss up, I'm a boss, I'm making boss moves. And I think we as believers have to be really careful with that, because if that is not placed in its right perspective, there can come haughtiness with that.
Yes.
And there can come a heart that is not pliable and pure when we go out in our practices. And so for me, a leader is more than someone who's over a Fortune 500 company. You can be a leader in your home. You can be a leader, as a teacher at your school. It is these characteristics that portray God in a way where people get a chance to see Him. And so it was interesting because one of the questions or responses to the question is that boss moves is the language of the culture. What does leadership look like when sent by God? And this person said it looks like integrity, honesty, respect towards each other. And so we're in a culture where we tell you a lot of times to get to the top, there are certain things that you have to do. And people begin to compromise who they are to get to the top.
Yes.
And so the question then becomes, well, who sent you? Because if God sent you, I don't have to backstab, I don't have to compromise who I am to be able to get to the top. So talk a little bit, Lisa, about the dynamics of the training that you have and just talking about those areas of integrity and trust and respect for others.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because even in our church, we have a leadership culture. And that's one of the things, I think that's what the reason I'm in this is to talk about how you step into a role of leadership, but to not lose yourself. Because that is what we see. And so there's a process, and I'm going to talk spiritual, if I may. There's a process that you have to go through with God, and He begins to strip things out of you so that you understand very early this has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with even the money. Because a lot of times I've learned that, and I've learned it from my coach, Apostle Jonas Clark. A lot of times people just step into a business because they don't want a boss.
Yes.
So that you've already got the wrong intention,
right.
And you're going to always be chasing something, and you'll have the approach will be very different. But when you step into this understanding that leadership is really servant, kingdom leadership is really a next level of serving,
right.
And showing people what kingdom really looks like from a serving place. Yeah. So now when I come in, I don't have to make any kind of demand, because when I show up, the kingdom shows up. But how does that even get there? It's through a process of being broken. It's through a process of being crushed. It's through a process of going through that place where I'm willing to humble myself under the mighty hand of God so that He can exalt me. And when He puts me there, the whole thing is understand no one can move me from there. Right. When you have to fight to put yourself there, you're going to have to fight to stay there. That's it. But when He fights for you, it's very different. Amen. It's very different.
Amen. Let me tell you why this conversation is so awesome, because when you think about, I tell people, entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart.
No.
If you ever think that you're going to work, if you were working 60 hours for the job, let's say 70 or 80, and no guarantee all the time that you are going to get paid. Okay. But I love what you said, Lisa, because we have to be so careful with this culture. We hear a lot of people talking about entrepreneurship, but if you're not sent, then you will try to create this, and may not be able to be sustained in it because God never sent you to do it. And so this is the thing that I want to really convey today. I don't want people to see entrepreneurship as the upper echelon and working for a job as something lower, because both are needed.
That's right. That's right.
We can't have a world full of entrepreneurs, and we won't have a world full of jobs. But I want us to learn how to be able to respect both. Because wherever God sends you, that's where you will be able to flourish and thrive. And so as you talk a little bit, Lisa, about what are some of the challenges that you find in the workplace as it relates to somebody having the mindset that they know they're sent and they're kingdom-minded versus going out into the world and working in the marketplace?
Well, I'm glad you said that. I remember when I was laid off the second time. And even through the process, so 20 years, there were many times money wasn't there. Because when you're an entrepreneur, you don't get a every 2-week check. You might not get paid for several months. Yeah. And so you got to know who's really with you in that process. And I remember when it got really bad, and I started putting out resumes. Because I went back to what I knew. I'm like, because you got to work. And I put out resumes. and I had like 3-4 decision makers saying, yeah, we're gonna call you. I'm still waiting. Because in that moment, the Lord spoke to me, he said, did I tell you to do that? And he said, you're going to learn how to walk by faith. And so that was my assignment. But then I met people in the marketplace who, when I go in to do training, and their biggest thing, they want to do this. And I'm glad to, I'd love to do what you do. It must be so easy. I'm like, no. There's some days I work 22 out of 24 hours. There's no sleeping. You will work harder for yourself than anyone else. My biggest thing to tell them is you have to ask God, number one, why are you in the place you're in, on the job? Because there's an assignment. When you begin to see where you are from His perspective, it's not the job anymore, it's an assignment. You are assigned in this place. You are assigned to be salt and light. You are assigned to be a different. You are assigned there because you have an answer that nobody else has. And so right in that place, you become the leader, if you will, in that organization, and so they begin to seek you out. So it is not for everybody to be an entrepreneur, and it's not for everybody to work in there, but when God does it, and when you see where you walk into your workplace every day, that it's my assignment. This is my territory. This is my realm. This is not who I am. This is my sent one position. It looks very different. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And you know, it's interesting as you talked about once you get there knowing the assignment. I think that helps us to be able to get up every day and go to it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that challenge is like, there's so much going on in my job. I hate my job. And you can kind of move from not being grateful. Because there are people who would love to be able to have the jobs that we have, or do what we do. And so it's always this waking up. I on my Facebook, I know people are like, it's Monday, or I gotta go back to work on Monday. But I made a point of saying, this is marvelous Monday. I made a point of saying, this is the day that the Lord has made. I shall rejoice and be glad in it. And so it's this mindset around everything. Like, it's this mindset of when you go into the place. And so if we're mindful of, not only am I going to work in this job where it's a hot mess and people keep confusion going, but it's my assignment. So it shifts your mind to, when I walk in here, I'm expecting God to do something. I'm expecting them to see God in my actions.
Amen. That is good. These are the kind of conversations I have in my leadership boot camp. It's a boot camp. And so my whole thing is, we're not talking about supervision 101, we're not talking about all this lower level stuff, we're talking about high level leadership principles. And when you think about leadership from where God sees it, it's never a hard day. Challenge, that's what we're made for. Challenge should make the gift wake up in you. And when you are the problem solver, now it doesn't look like it looks to everybody else. So everybody sees the glass half empty, I see it half full all the time. Because I know who I am in here.
Come on.
And you know what? The biggest thing is, see, one thing we've learned is we have the advantage. When you're of the kingdom, you have the advantage. You know why you have the advantage? Because we got the Holy Spirit. And He gives us everything we need to know. So when you spend time before you go there, so you wake up Monday, it's storming outside, it's not storming in the kingdom. Come on, guys. When they want to talk about all the things they talk about, that's not what's going on in the kingdom.
That's it.
Because when the kingdom comes, everything changes. When you show up, everything should change. When you show up, even the most rebellious one brings it in. Oh, come on here. Don't get me started.
Go ahead.
And so when we can have these kinds of conversations to let people know what it really looks like, what leadership really stands for, and I keep saying, because God is showing that leadership needs to come out of the kingdom, needs to come out of the church. We need to show what it looks like, because it's been perverted, because it's been corrupted, because there's so much nasty political stuff going on. But where do we make the difference?
Right.
Where do we make different decisions? God will show us how to do that. And that's what He does all the time. I'm just so honored that He chose me to do what I'm doing, even in a tough time like right now.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Yes, amen.
And let's go for politics for a minute, because you just brought it up.
Oh.
And so we're not talking about which side are you on today.
No.
We're talking about when those conversations arise, what's in you that will still be able to reflect heaven? Because we get caught up in personalities, and we got a real huge personality in the White House right now. But it's not about him. Because if we make it about him, then our flesh wants to talk a lot of times in those conversations versus our spirit and understanding what's going to take place in the last days. What does perilous times really look like? Like we say, oh, we're in the last days, or oh, I know, I was looking at the news and I know we must be in the last days. Because every time you heard a bad story, you hear one worse. Well, guess what? That's a part of last days. But there is still a character that God wants us to portray. Because a lot of times people want to pull you in those conversations.
Yeah.
And if you're not prayed up, I just saw When They See Us. And I knew before seeing it, I need to be prayed up to see When They See Us. But I still wasn't ready for what I saw when I saw When They See Us. And so I had to really go to the throne room in reference to what my flesh was feeling when I saw that. Because guess what? God still wants us to minister to police officers. God still wants us to minister to detectives. God still wants us to minister to the KKK. Are we at that place where he can use you to minister to people who hate you? So don't tell me that you're so busy being a boss, but you're not busy doing what it takes to be a servant. And so I want you to talk a little bit about, because I want to go into the marketplace. And I remember of recent 2 trials that I had. I'm an insurance agent. And I remember there was a practice that they were doing, and I wasn't okay with it because it fell under lying. And so I told my immediate boss, and he was like, no problem. You can use a different script. Because I didn't want to say, I sent you something in the mail. I've never talked to this person, so no, I didn't send you anything in the mail. And so he said, no problem, you can use another script. But it was interesting because shortly thereafter, they had another meeting. And someone else brought another phone script in saying the same thing. So now I had this dilemma of going up to the higher person, the actual managing partner. And I sat in with him and my manager and told him that I wasn't going to be able to say that script. That's right. And I'm sharing this with you all because these are the things that we're going to be faced with every day. If we're saying that boss moves, when sent by God, is about integrity, it's about honesty, it's about people being able to see God, then we gotta know that the enemy is going to set up those pitfalls for you to do something contrary to what you say he's saying you to do. So talk a little bit about, in your trainings, how do you convey that point about integrity and honesty in the work field?
It's very easy to hate police when we see what we see, and I get that. And so I'm saying this is a black woman. I'm also married to a retired cop. He's dual sworn. I work with them every day, not just in this state, not in every. I get to see them outside of the uniform. I've been on ride-alongs at night in Miami Gardens and in Lauderhill. I've been in a bulletproof vest. I watched them jump out of the car when I sat in there and they were running through the dark. I've been there. I'm a black mother with black sons and black grandsons. So when I talk to you, I understand I'm standing in the middle of the road literally, because I am not a community activist. That's not what God calls me. But I do believe I'm some sort of bridge, if you will, because I'm always looking at it from a kingdom perspective. And one thing I always like to say, I get to see them on the other side. And my first comment to them is, first of all, thank you for what you do. Because everybody can't do this.
Amen.
I will thank you for what you do. That begins to break the ice. And the second thing, because we don't see them getting shot at. We don't see them, but the second thing I do is I say, just keep doing what you do, but do it with the right integrity.
Right.
I understand what you're up against, but do it with the right integrity. Understand that everybody's watching what you do. Everything you do is being questioned. So watch what you're doing. Because if I could say this, because when I see it, I see bigger than a black-white issue. Please hear me.
Yes.
Please hear me.
Yes.
And I hope that your audience will hear where I'm going, because I'm talking now from a kingdom perspective. Because when you said last days, that woke it up in me. This is bigger than just black and white.
Absolutely.
Is there racism? Yes. And that's what our church and many churches should be fighting against. But can I tell you the biggest thing I see? is the word is lawlessness. Because I've seen our black people challenge our black officers. Are you listening to me? I've seen that, and when I'm getting calls from officers to pray for them, because we have the king to pray for them, because some of the black churches attacking them. Black officers, not white officers. Are you seeing? So it just takes another place for us to be. Do we have a history? Yes, we do. Have we been hurt? Yes, we do. Everybody has. But then there's the remnant. The remnant see things very differently. And so when you talk about integrity down in the workplace, and what you said was very key, and one part of it, one of the training, I talk about ethical moments of leadership. That moment when you can make a decision and it's not right. Ethical can be gray. It's not real black, clear, but you know right from wrong.
Right.
And you know the difference between right and almost right. And so the question always is, in the morning, no matter what they say, but can you look at you? Because there's a poem I heard, I have it in my book, and it says, reputation is what men say about you on your tombstone. But character is what the angels say about you before the throne of God. And there's a difference. Men may see that, but what is God see? So sometimes it's going to put you, leadership, effective kingdom leadership will put you in the fire. Because I'm not doing that. And there have been contracts that didn't sign because I'm not doing that. I will leave all the money on the table because this is God's business. Our name and His name is to be protected.
Amen. Give it up there. I my pastor is really big on talking about character versus reputation.
Yes.
You know, and that Jesus made himself no reputation.
Of none.
And so when you go into that topic, you know, I think sometimes we feel like we've done our due diligence when we go to church on Sunday. You know, I met the quota. I went on Sunday. I got up early. I was tired. You know, I even stood up and clapped for the whole praise and worship.
The shout.
Oh, the shout is extra. That's all. And then Monday through Saturday, there's like this metamorphosis that you think that it wasn't a 7-day filled with the Holy Spirit. You know, I'm expecting you to walk out holiness all 7 days. And I think it's sometimes what we have, this is what I'm talking about changing the atmosphere of how we see it. The culture even says white lie. White lie is not in the Bible. He's just going to see it as a lie. And so when we go into the culture, when we go into this business, you said something, Lisa, that I think we have to begin to really better prepare ourselves for. When you stand up for righteousness and when you walk it out the way He has called you to, expect fire. Like my mind when it comes to warfare, I don't trip. I honestly don't trip anymore about warfare because I expect it. Now, what gets me off kilter is if I stop doing what I know He has told me to do because a pitfall has come. That's when I'm going to be challenged. But as far as issues that arise, trials and tribulations that arise, listen, I could be here all day telling you the backstory about some things, but it's irrelevant. Because the person who's going to get glory when it's all said and done is God. Amen. And so I think we have to begin to see trials and tribulations differently. Because if someone could have told me I could be going through what I'm going through right now and still standing, all glory goes to God. I got a chance to see Him like I've never seen Him before. And so when we go into the workplace, I want us to stop delineating how I will act here versus church, versus home, versus with my girlfriends. What we're talking about with a beautiful life, people often ask me, you know, my background, I'm a certified event planner, so people are used to me doing events, doing dinner parties, all of these things. But it's so much more to a beautiful life being beautiful things.
Yes.
When He said He'll make all things beautiful in His time, He meant that. Like the ugliest thing about us, He has the ability to make beautiful.
Yes.
And so, Lisa, I want you to talk a little bit because I really want to just stay there just for a minute about the workplace and integrity. Because when we feel that, well, Joan did it last week, you know, Tina came in late last week, you know, and they didn't say anything. but who are we doing it unto?
Yes.
Amen.
And so I'm not saying we won't be late. I'm not saying we won't be challenged. What I'm saying is it starts with me. I don't have to wait for you to tell me that I was insubordinate. I already know because I have a relationship with the Lord. And the Holy Spirit is totally in control to tell us, okay, now you know, you might not have said anything out your mouth, but you didn't give her the right look. But I really want us to be able to see them differently. So talk a little bit, just a little bit more in reference to that integrity and that one decision that can have you cross the line.
You know, one of the things I talk about, and I'm gonna lead to it, I talk about some wisdom truths of leadership, no nonsense wisdom truths. And number one is, leader, people are watching everything you do and everything you don't do. I know that sounds like but number two, everything you do counts and everything you don't do counts. So when I'm coming late, they see that. When they hear me talking about people, they hear that. When they see me doing less than, okay, but let's add to it. But then they know, because you said that you were a Christian. So now let's take it up. And if that's the God that you serve, does he allow that? I didn't know, I thought of it, because see, remember, we're going to set what integrity really looks like. We're going to really set what that looks like. So when I have someone that wants me to say that they came and they completed a class because they came to 2 out of 5 days, they think it's like 80%. Or 70%, and they want me to give them a certificate. Well, it's going to be no.
That's it.
And it doesn't matter who you know. It doesn't matter who your mother, your father. It doesn't matter that you know the major, the captain, or the sheriff. That's irrelevant to me. Because the thing about it is, everything about what I say and do, what we say and do, is on the line. Because all that has to happen is one time.
Right.
And then I'm going to have to do it for the next one. And then I'm going to have to do it for the next one. Because the minute I don't do it for you, then I'm playing favorites. Now I'm playing a different kind of game. And you know what? I do teach them, it's going to sound strange, but this is how the Lord does it. I teach them how to play the game in the workplace. Listen to this. Because see, all politics is the ability to network, to get things done for the company and yourself. That's all it is. Did you hear it? That's all it is. Now, how people do it is where it gets nasty. So you know what I teach you to do? I don't need anything to be fair. I'm going to give you some wisdom truth. Kingdom wisdom truth. No nonsense wisdom truth. I don't need fair. We don't need fair. We walked this through not even knowing what we were doing. We don't need fair because we have what's called leverage. Leverage. You know what my leverage is? Everything I do it very well.
Amen.
Everything
That's
you do,
it.
it's leverage. Because everything I do, every time I do something, I get a result. And you hear me? Look, people trust me. It's called leverage. People will talk to me and they won't talk to anybody else. It's called leverage. That mean-spirited boss won't find nobody, but they'll come talk to Lisa, sit down and tell me everything and I can help them. It's called leverage. Did you hear me? I know the right people. Yeah, it's who I know. First I know him, and then they know me. Come on here, come on here. It's called leverage. It's called kingdom leverage. So that I don't have to play nasty. I don't have to play dirty. They can't say I slept with nobody to get there because I slept with my own bed with my own husband. And when I didn't have a husband, I slept by my own self.
Jazzy Jewels for Me is owned and operated by Terry Reed, an independent consultant for paparazzi accessories. Accessories that are fabulous, fashionable, and always $5. Fall in love with the new styles added daily without breaking the bank. Shop online at www.jazzyjewelsforme.com and be sure to jazz up your outfit by following Terry Reed on Facebook and Instagram at Jazzy Jewels for Me. Have the ideal outfit for your fun in the sun, but not the shades to match? Well, get your fashionable shades from Issa Shade, LLC. Visit her on Facebook at Issa Shade, that's ISSASHADE, or Instagram at Issa Shade, LLC, or contact her at 786-383-6701 and make it a bright day with Issa Shades. Mary Kay products offer you so many ways to enhance your beauty and well-being. Innovative skincare, makeup with on-trend colors, and pampering bath and body products. Contact Mary Kay consultant Avon White today at 754-221-7163 or visit her website, marykay.com/awhite10.